Dr. Han Minho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he worked on Private Kim Dae-ho's torn chest. The young soldier's breathing was shallow, blood seeping through the emergency bandages despite Minho's best efforts. Around them, the field hospital hummed with desperate activity as dozens of medics rushed between beds treating wounded from both human and alien forces. "Stay with me, Dae-ho," Minho whispered, adjusting the plasma sutures. "Your sister is waiting for you back on Earth." The massive transparent dome overhead allowed natural light to filter down onto the medical bay. Giant Red Cross symbols were painted across the entire structure, visible even from orbit. 3 similar medical stations dotted the landscape of Kepler 44 to b. Each one a beacon of hope in the middle of this brutal war. Nurse Park Soyoung moved between patients with practiced efficiency. Her uniform stained with blood from a dozen different species. She paused at her sensor station, frowning at the readings. "Doctor, I'm picking up ships approaching fast, multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace." Minho glanced up from his patient. "Probably another medical transport bringing supplies." Sir Soyoung's voice carried a note of worry. "These are warships. They're not responding to our medical beacon transmissions. The medical beacon was supposed to be sacred. Every civilized species in the galaxy recognized the signal that marked hospitals and medical personnel as off-limits during combat. It was the one thing that kept medics alive in war zones across the galaxy." Through the dome, Minho could see the sleek shapes of hegemony attack cruisers descending through the atmosphere. They had dark holes gleamed like obsidian weapon ports, glowing with charged energy. He felt his stomach drop, but forced himself to stay calm. "Keep working, everyone," he called out to his team. "The hegemony knows we're non-combatants. We've treated their wounded just like our own." Minji looked up from where she was operating on a wounded hegemony soldier, her hands deep inside the alien's thoracic cavity. The creature's blue. Blood stained her gloves as she worked to repair damaged organs. "This one will live because of us," she said quietly. "You have to know we're here to help." Captain Lee Ja-hoon, the medical corps commander, stood near the communication station, monitoring the approaching ships. His weathered face showed the strain of months coordinating medical operations across 3 war-torn continents. At 45, he had seen enough combat to know when something felt wrong. 7 ships, he reported. Heavy cruiser class. They're taking attack positions above our facility. The first plasma bolt came without warning. The children's wing, where young refugees from both sides were being treated, erupted in flames. The impact threw Minho to the ground, his patient's blood spraying across the floor as medical equipment crashed around them. Emergency alarms shrieked as the dome's structural supports groaned under the assault. "What the hell?" Ji-hoon shouted, grabbing the emergency communicator with shaking hands. "This is Terran Medical Station 7 Alpha. We are clearly marked non-combatants, treating wounded from all sides. Cease fire immediately." The response crackled through the comm system in heavily accented standard galactic, "No mercy for human healers. You make enemies strong again. Prepare to die." Minho felt ice flow through his veins. They were being targeted deliberately. Around him, wounded patients screamed as debris rained down from the damaged ceiling. A support beam crashed onto a bed, where a young hegemony soldier had been recovering, crushing him instantly. "Evacuation protocol?" Ji-hoon roared over the chaos. "All mobile patients to the emergency bunkers." The second wave of plasma bolts struck like hammer blows from the gods. The main surgical suite vanished in a ball of superheated gas, taking 6 medics and 12 patients with it. Dr. Yoon Min-ji dove under an operating table as burning metal fell where she had been standing seconds before. "They're targeting us deliberately," she whispered, her voice filled with horror. "This isn't collateral damage. They want us dead." Minho crawled toward his patient, Private Kim Dae-ho, who lay pinned under a fallen medical scanner. The young soldier's eyes were wide with terror and pain. "Doctor, can't feel my legs." "You're going to be fine," Minho lied, checking for spinal damage even as explosions continued to rock the facility. Around them, the orderly medical bay had become a war zone. Nurses dragged wounded patients toward reinforced shelters while medics worked frantically to save those too injured to move. The third bombardment targeted the power generators. Emergency lighting flickered on as the main facility went dark. Through the cracked dome, Minho could see similar explosions blooming across the horizon where the other medical stations had been. Pillars of smoke rose into the alien sky like funeral pyres. In the distance, automatic distress beacons from the other facilities went silent one by one. Station 4 Beta, where Dr. Park Hyun-woo ran the trauma center. Station 9 Charlie, where Commander Kim Sahi coordinated refugee medical care. All gone. The bombardment continued for another 20 minutes before the hegemony ships departed, leaving behind smoking ruins and scattered bodies. Of the 2,847 medical personnel who had been serving across all facilities, only 341 survived the coordinated attack. The wounded they had been treating, both human and alien, were left to die where they lay, as rescue shuttles finally arrived hours later. Minho knelt beside Private Kim Daeho's body, the young soldier's hand still clutched in his own. The galaxy had just witnessed something that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The hegemony had declared war not just on humanity, but on the very concept of mercy itself. The emergency session of the Earth Assembly had never seen anything like this. Representatives from every human colony, space station, and outpost across the galaxy filled the massive chamber. The air was thick with tension as Admiral Cho Won-sik stepped up to the central podium, his dress uniform bearing the scars of 40 years of military service. Behind him, massive holographic displays showed the smoking ruins of what had been Medical Station 7 Alpha just hours before. The images were gut-wrenching. Bodies of medics and patients scattered among the wreckage. Children's toys melted into twisted metal. Medical equipment designed to save lives reduced to radioactive ash. Members of the assembly, Admiral Cho began, his voice carrying the weight of command across the silent chamber. 12 hours ago, the hegemony committed an act so barbaric, so completely against every principle we hold sacred, that it demands immediate response. The hologram shifted to show Dr. Han Minho's final transmission before the attack. The young doctor's face was calm, professional, even as he worked to save a wounded hegemony soldier. Then came the flash of plasma fire, the screams, the chaos. We face an unprecedented violation of every law of civilized warfare. The hegemony has not just attacked our medical corps, they have shattered the very foundation of interstellar humanitarian law. Representative Bae Yaren from the Luna colony rose from her seat, her voice shaking with barely controlled anger. Admiral, this is monstrous, but surely the Galactic Court of Justice can handle this matter through proper legal channels. We have procedures for war crimes. Admiral Cho's weathered face hardened. Representative Bae, the court will take years to act. Their fastest war crimes trial took 37 months. By then, how many more medics will die? How many wounded? Soldiers will be left to suffer while bureaucrats debate legal technicalities. The chamber erupted in murmurs of agreement. Everyone knew the Galactic Court's reputation for moving at the speed of continental drift. The survivors, Admiral Cho continued, are being held in hegemony prison camps. According to our intelligence, they're being forced to treat enemy soldiers while their own wounded comrades are denied medical care. Every day we wait is another day those brave men and women suffer. President Kim Dong-woo leaned forward in his chair. What do you recommend, Admiral? Operation Nightingale, Cho replied without hesitation. Immediate extraction of survivors and comprehensive intelligence gathering. We get our people out, and we document every war crime for the galaxy to see. The holographic display changed to show tactical readouts of hegemony space. Red zones marked heavily defended systems. Yellow zones showed patrol routes. Green corridors indicated possible infiltration paths. This would require our most advanced stealth technology, pointed out General Park Seong-hwa from the Space Marines. The quantum-cloaked ships are still experimental, and it's time to test them in the field. Admiral Cho shot back. We have men and women dying in alien prison camps while we debate the reliability of our equipment. Representative Kim Tae-young from the Mars colonies stood up. What about diplomatic solutions? Can we negotiate prisoner exchanges? The Admiral's expression grew grim. We tried. The hegemony's response was to execute 3 more captured medics and broadcast the footage across their territory. They're not interested in negotiation. The chamber fell silent. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present. This wasn't just about military strategy or political positioning. This was about the very soul of humanity's place in the galaxy. "The Shadow Regiment stands ready," Admiral Cho announced. "Colonel Song Tae-yoon has assembled a team of our finest special operations personnel. 12 specialists trained in deep space infiltration, combat medicine, and intelligence." Gathering. The vote was called. One by one, representatives from across human space cast their ballots. Luna Colony. Yes. Mars Colonies. Yes. Titan Station. Yes. The Outer Rim Territories. Yes. Every single vote came back the same. Unanimous approval for Operation Nightingale. Within the hour, Colonel Song Tae-yeon received his orders in the secure briefing room deep beneath Geneva Spaceport. At 38, Song was a legend in special operations circles. He had led successful missions in the Vegan Nebula, the Outer Rim conflicts, and the Centauri insurgency. His service record was mostly classified, but the results spoke for themselves. His team assembled around the holographic tactical display. Major Kong Suho, his second in command, and an expert in alien psychology. Sergeant Chen Minyuk, their scout specialist, who could move through enemy territory like a ghost. Corporal Nam Jiang, their intelligence officer with a perfect memory, and advanced cybernetic implants for data storage. "Gentlemen," Colonel Song began, "we're going into the heart of hegemony space. 3 prison camps holding our survivors. We extract them all and gather evidence of war crimes." The hologram showed the target locations. Each camp was surrounded by defensive installations, patrol ships, and automated weapon systems. Getting in would be hard enough. Getting out with dozens of rescued prisoners would be nearly impossible. "Sir?" Major Kang Suho asked, studying the tactical readouts. "What about the prisoners who might be too injured to move?" Medical reports suggest. "Some survivors have been tortured." Colonel Song's expression turned to stone. His jaw clenched as he thought about the medics who had dedicated their lives to saving others, suffering in alien prisons for the crime of showing mercy. "We bring them all home. Every single one," he said with absolute certainty. "Dead or alive, every human comes back to Earth. The hegemony wanted to break our spirit by attacking our healers. Instead, they're about to learn what happens when you threaten the people humanity values most." The mission parameters were uploaded to their neural interfaces. Stealth insertion using the experimental quantum-cloaked ship Shadow's Edge. Infiltration of 3 separate prison facilities across 2 star systems. Extraction of survivors, intelligence gathering, and egress before hegemony forces could respond. "Equipment check in 6 hours, Song announced. "Launch in 12. Questions? Sergeant Chen raised his hand. "Rules of engagement, sir," Song's smile was cold as deep space. The hegemony declared war on non-combatants. They gave up any claim to mercy when they targeted medical personnel. "Do whatever it takes to complete the mission and bring our people home." As the team dispersed to prepare their equipment, Song remained staring at the holographic display. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness of hegemony space, the survivors of the medical corps were counting on them. Dr. Han Minho, if he was still alive, Nurse Park So-young, Captain Lee Ji-hoon, all of them depending on 12 soldiers to bring them home. The Shadow Regiment had never failed a mission. They weren't about to start now. The stealth ship Silent Mercy shimmered into existence. At the edge of the Rigel system, like a ghost materializing from the void, her quantum-cloaked hull bent light around itself, making the vessel nearly invisible to both visual and electronic detection. Colonel Song Tae-yoon stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays, showing the prison planet below. "Quantum. Drive disengaged," reported Lieutenant Oh Seung-min from the pilot station. "We're running silent. All systems minimal power." Through the ship's advanced sensor array, Song could see the hegemony prison camp sprawled across the planet's barren surface. The facility looked like something from humanity's darkest nightmares, a sprawling, complex of gray concrete buildings surrounded by energy barriers and automated gun towers. Guard ships patrolled overhead in lazy circles, their crews probably bored from months of routine duty. "Target confirmed," whispered Sergeant Chen Minyuk, adjusting the long-range scanners. "Prison complex, Zeta 7. Those are our people down there." The images that came through the sensors made Song's blood run cold. In the compound's medical bay, Dr. Han Minho moved between beds like a walking corpse. Once a healthy man in his 30s, he now appeared gaunt and hollow-eyed. His hands shook as he worked on wounded hegemony soldiers, his medical uniform hanging loose on his skeletal frame. Around him, 43 other human medical personnel performed their duties under the watchful eyes of armed guards. These were the survivors of the massacre on Kepler-4 for it to be. Forced to use their healing skills to serve their captors while their own wounded comrades lay dying in separate cells. "My God," breathed Major Kong Suho, watching the feed. "What have they done to them?" Corporal Nam Jion, their intelligence specialist, had neural implants that let her interface directly with the ship's recording systems. Her eyes glowed with a faint blue light as she documented everything. Recording all violations of the Geneva Protocols, she whispered, "This is evidence of systematic torture and forced labor." The surveillance showed hegemony guards forcing human medics to work 18-hour shifts. When Dr. Yoon Mingyi collapsed from exhaustion, they dragged her to solitary confinement. When Nurse Park Soyoung tried to treat a wounded human prisoner, they beat her with shock sticks until she couldn't. "Stand, bastards," muttered Sergeant Chen, his finger unconsciously moving toward his weapon's trigger. As their scout specialist, he had seen plenty of ugly things in his career. But this systematic cruelty toward healers violated everything he believed in. Song studied the compound's defenses through his tactical visor. Guard towers at each corner, automated defense systems, patrol routes that changed every 4 hours. The hegemony had learned from previous human rescue attempts and upgraded their security accordingly. "Insertion point confirmed," he announced. "We go in during the shift change at 0300 local time. Chen, you take point. Suho, you're with the extraction team. Gyong, I need you in their command center, gathering intelligence." The hours crawled by as they waited for the optimal insertion window. Song used the time to study detailed layouts of the prison complex, memorizing every corridor and exit route. His team checked and rechecked their equipment, silenced weapons, medical supplies for the survivors, and portable data storage units capable of copying entire computer systems at 0250 local time. They launched from the Silent Mercy in a small stealth shuttle. The craft was so advanced it could slip through sensor nets like smoke through a screen door. Sergeant Chen piloted them down through the planet's thin atmosphere, using natural terrain features to mask their approach. They landed in a rocky canyon 2 kilometers from the prison complex. Song's team moved out immediately, covering the distance in complete silence. Their powered armor eliminated the sound of footsteps, while thermal dampeners made them invisible to heat sensors. The rescue began exactly at 300. Chen took out the first guard tower with a precision energy weapon that left no trace. The guard simply slumped over his console, appearing to be asleep to anyone watching the security cameras. Major Suho disabled the automated defenses. By hacking their control systems, through his wrist computer, Song led the main assault team through the compound's outer perimeter. They moved like ghosts, neutralizing guards with silent efficiency. Each hegemony soldier went down without making a sound, their weapons taken before they could raise an alarm. The medical bay was their first priority. Song found Dr. Han Minho. Still working despite the late hour, his hands steady despite his obvious exhaustion. When the doctor looked up and saw human soldiers in tactical gear, tears began streaming down his face. "Is this real?" Minho whispered, afraid to believe what he was seeing. "We're here to take you home, Doc," Song replied softly, helping the weakened man to his feet. They found Dr. Yoon Minji in solitary confinement, locked in a cell barely large enough for her to lie down. She was barely conscious but still clutching a small medical kit she had somehow managed to hide from the guards. "The command center," she gasped when Song knelt beside her. "They have recordings of everything. The orders to attack the hospitals. They're proud of what they did. They wanted to make an example of us. Song felt his jaw clench. Where is it? Sublevel 3. Central Tower. Her voice was weak, but determined. Make them pay for what they did to the others. While Song's team worked to evacuate the survivors, Lieutenant Oh Seung-min led a separate unit to the prison's command center. What they found there was worse than anyone had imagined. The hegemony computers contained terabytes of evidence, not just tactical communications and battle plans, but actual celebration videos of the medical facility attacks. Hegemony officers laughed as they watched footage of human doctors dying. It saved recordings of the most brutal moments, sharing them like entertainment among their forces. There were detailed plans for targeting medical personnel across the galaxy, treating the violation of humanitarian law as a legitimate military strategy. Download everything, Song ordered through his CUM system. Every file, every communication, every sick video they made. The extraction took 47 minutes. They loaded the survivors onto their shuttle, many of them too weak to walk without assistance. Captain Lee Ji-hoon, despite suffering from broken ribs and internal injuries, insisted on helping carry other wounded medics. As the Silent Mercy lifted off from the planet's surface, Song sat beside the rescued medical personnel. Captain Ji-hoon, his face, pale but determined, managed to speak despite his obvious pain. "Colonel," he said, "they filmed everything. Every attack, every execution, every moment of torture. They wanted to terrorize medical personnel across the galaxy. They wanted other doctors to know what would happen if they helped human soldiers." Song nodded grimly, watching the prison planet shrink behind them. In the ship's databanks, they now carried proof of systematic war crimes that would shock the civilized galaxy. "Then we'll make sure the galaxy sees exactly what they did," he promised. "Every world, every species, every government will know what the hegemony really is." The hunt was over. Now came the reckoning. The assembly hall on Earth had witnessed many historic moments, but nothing like this. Representatives from every human colony across the galaxy sat in complete silence, their faces pale as they absorbed the testimony they were hearing. The massive chamber, which normally buzzed with political debate and diplomatic chatter, was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air recyclers. Dr. Han Minho stood at the central podium, his body still bearing the scars of months in hegemony captivity. He had gained some weight since his rescue, but his eyes still held the haunted look of someone who had seen humanity's capacity for both healing and cruelty. His voice trembled as he spoke, each word carrying the weight of unspeakable experiences. "Made us watch," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The advanced audio systems carried his words to every corner of the vast chamber. When our own wounded soldiers were brought into the prison medical bay, the guards forced us to turn them away. We had to stand there watching our own people die while we were ordered to treat enemy soldiers with minor scratches. His hands shook as he gripped the podium. Private Kim Dae-ho was brought in 3 weeks after the attack. He had been shot in the abdomen during a rescue attempt. The wound was treatable. I could have saved him easily. Commander Vextel made me watch. As the boy died, calling for his mother while I was forced to bandage a guard's scraped knuckle, the silence in the room was deafening. Several representatives had tears streaming down their faces. General Park Seong-hwa, a veteran of 30 years of military service, looked physically ill. Admiral Cho Won-sik stepped forward, activating the massive holographic display system that dominated the chamber's center. "What Dr. Minho has told you is only the beginning. The intelligence we recovered from the hegemony prison facilities reveals a systematic campaign of terror unlike anything we've seen in galactic history." The first video began playing, showed hegemony Commander Zekthal standing in what appeared to be a military briefing room, addressing a group of officers. His translation came through clearly. The humans' greatest weakness is their compassion. They cannot bear to watch their healers suffer. By targeting their medical corps, we break their spirit without losing a single soldier in combat. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. This wasn't random cruelty or battlefield chaos. It was a calculated strategy to weaponize humanity's values against them. The next video was even worse. Hegemony officers laughed and cheered as they watched footage of the hospital bombings on Kepler 4b. They had recorded the attacks from multiple angles, turning the massacre of medical personnel into entertainment for their troops. Tactical brilliance, one officer exclaimed in the recording. Remove their healing powers from the battlefield, and the humans become weak. They care more about saving lives than winning wars. Dr. Yoon Minji, who had been appointed as the official spokesperson for the survivors, rose slowly from her seat in the witness section. She still walked with a slight limp from her time in solitary confinement, but her voice was strong and clear. Members of the assembly, she began, we trusted in the laws of war. We believed that our medical symbols would protect us, that our oath to heal would be respected even by our enemies. We were wrong. She gestured toward the holographic display, which now showed internal hegemony communications. They planned every detail, which hospitals to hit first, how to maximize psychological impact. They even had betting pools on how long it would take for human medics to break under torture. Admiral Cho presented document after document to the Joint Intelligence Committee. Communications between hegemony fleet commanders discussing the best ways to terrorize medical personnel, training manuals that specifically targeted healers as high-value psychological warfare targets, even celebration videos made after successful attacks on hospitals. The evidence is overwhelming, Admiral, Cho stated. This wasn't war, it was systematic terrorism directed at non-combatants, whose only crime was trying to save lives. Secretary Park Geo, Earth's chief diplomatic officer, stood to address the assembly. Her normally composed demeanor showed cracks of strain. I've been in contact with the Galactic Court of Justice. They have agreed to review the evidence and begin preliminary war crimes proceedings. A murmur of relief started to spread through the chamber, but Secretary Park held up her hand. However, they estimate that preliminary proceedings alone could take 18 months. A full trial could take years. The relief died instantly. Dr. Yoon Mingi stood again, her voice carrying a note of barely controlled anger. 18 months. How many more medics will they kill, while bureaucrats in comfortable offices debate legal procedures? How many more wounded soldiers will die while we wait for justice? The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate military action, others calling for patience with the legal process. The noise grew so loud that President Kim Dong-woo had to activate the chamber's audio dampeners to restore order. That's when a new voice cut through the chaos from the back of the chamber. Commander Lim Haeon from the Strategic Communications Division stepped forward, her uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's most elite information warfare unit. What if we didn't wait for the court? She said, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet room. Admiral Cho raised an eyebrow. Explain your thinking, Commander. Lim Haeon moved to the center of the chamber, her presence commanding attention. At 35, she was one of the youngest division commanders in Earth's military, but her reputation for strategic thinking was legendary. We have quantum communication networks that reach every inhabited system in the galaxy, she said. We have evidence that would horrify any civilized species. Why should we wait for judges and lawyers when we can present the facts directly to every world in known space? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. She was suggesting something unprecedented, bypassing all official channels and diplomatic protocols to broadcast the evidence directly to the entire galaxy. We broadcast everything, she continued. Every video, every communication, every piece of evidence showing what the hegemony really is. Let the galaxy judge for itself whether targeting medical personnel is acceptable warfare. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Some representatives called it reckless, warning about diplomatic consequences and political fallout. Others called it justice, arguing that the evidence was too important to be buried in legal proceedings for years. The risks are enormous, warned Representative Bae Yaren from Luna Colony. This could be seen as propaganda warfare, might make diplomatic solutions impossible. What diplomatic solutions? Shot back Representative Kim Tae-young from Mars. They're torturing our medics and laughing about it. Some crimes are so heinous that diplomacy becomes irrelevant. President Kim Dong-woo raised his hand for silence. The chamber gradually quieted as all eyes turned to Earth's leader. He was a man who had spent 40 years in politics, known for careful deliberation and measured responses. His decision would shape humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. The hegemony made a calculated choice, he said slowly. They decided to wage war against the very concept of mercy. They targeted our healers because they believed our compassion made us weak. He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of humanity's representatives. They were wrong. Our compassion makes us strong. Our dedication to healing makes us noble. Our commitment to justice makes us dangerous to those who prey on the innocent. His voice grew stronger. Evidence will be transmitted to every inhabited system in the galaxy within 24 hours. Every world, every species, every government will see exactly what the hegemony has done. They wanted to terrorize our medics and break our spirit. Instead, they'll face the judgment of every civilized world in known space. The vote was swift and decisive. The truth would be set free. The galaxy would decide for itself what justice looked like. The broadcast began at exactly 1200 Earth Standard Time, launching from the most powerful quantum transmitters humanity had ever built. The signal split into millions of encrypted data streams, each one carrying the complete evidence package to every corner of inhabited space. Within minutes, the transmission had reached the nearest star systems. Within hours, it was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Commander Lim Haeyeon stood in Earth's Strategic Communications Center, watching dozens of holographic displays that showed the signal's progress. Each screen represented a different star system, a different world receiving humanity's message. The quantum encrypted transmission was designed to bypass all official channels, appearing simultaneously on military networks, civilian broadcasts, and diplomatic communications. Signal confirmed at Alpha Centauri, reported Lieutenant Park Hyun-sung from his console. Full data package received and broadcasting on all civilian channels. Vegan Republic Systems confirming receipt, called out another technician. We're already translating it into local languages. The evidence package was devastating in its completeness. Every video, every communication, every piece of proof that showed the hegemony's systematic campaign of terror against medical personnel. The galaxy was about to see exactly what humanity had endured. On Proxima Station, a major trade hub near Centauri space, alien merchants gathered around public broadcast screens in shocked silence. They watched Hegemony Commander Zekthal laughing as human hospitals burned, celebrating the deaths of doctors and nurses as if it were a sporting event. The first video showed the attack on Medical Station 7 Alpha from multiple angles. Security cameras had recorded everything the moment when plasma bolts struck the children's wing. The desperate attempts by medics to save patients while under fire. The systematic destruction of clearly marked medical facilities. But it was the second set of videos that truly horrified viewers across the galaxy. These were recordings made by the hegemony themselves, celebration videos they had shared among their military units. Hegemony officers toasted with strange alien beverages as they watched footage of human medics being executed. They had betting pools on how long captured doctors would survive under torture. "Look at them beg for their lives," Commander Vextel said in one recording, pointing at a screen showing captured medical personnel. "The humans think their healing powers make them special. We'll show the galaxy what happens to those who help our enemies." The reaction across inhabited space was swift and visceral. On the water world of Oceania Prime, dolphin-like Aquarian Council called an emergency session. Their species had evolved with a deep respect for healers, and the images of medical personnel being targeted struck them as fundamentally evil. Within 6 hours, they had severed all diplomatic ties with the hegemony. The crystal beings of Silica Major, who communicated through harmonic vibrations, sent a message that could be heard across their entire star system. When translated, it was simple. Those who harm healers have no place among civilized worlds. Within 1 week, the political earthquake had begun. The Centauri Alliance, one of the galaxy's most powerful trade organizations, held an emergency vote. The result was unanimous. All trade agreements with the hegemony were terminated immediately. Centauri cargo ships that had been en route to hegemony space were ordered to turn around. The Vegan Republic, known for their cautious diplomatic approach, recalled all their ambassadors from hegemony territory. Their prime minister appeared on galactic news networks with a statement that shook the political establishment. Some acts are so evil that diplomatic relations become impossible. The targeting of medical personnel violates every principle of civilized warfare. Even the neutral worlds of the Outer Rim, who usually stayed out of galactic politics, imposed complete travel bans on hegemony citizens. Space stations that had welcomed traders from all species suddenly posted signs reading, "Hegemony vessels not permitted to dock." Commander Lim Hayan watched the responses flood in through her communication networks. Each report brought news of another diplomatic catastrophe. For the hegemony, Admiral, she reported to Admiral Cho, we're seeing mass protests on 17 hegemony worlds. Their own citizens are taking to the streets demanding justice. The protests were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. On the industrial world of Hegemony Prime, workers abandoned their factories to march through the streets carrying images of the murdered human medics. Many protesters were veterans who had been treated by human medical personnel during previous conflicts. "These doctors saved my life during the border wars," one hegemony veteran told a news reporter, his alien features twisted with shame. "They didn't care that I was their enemy. They saw a wounded being and they healed me. And this is how our leaders repaid them." The economic consequences followed quickly. Trade routes that had sustained the hegemony empire for 3 centuries were cut off overnight. Spiral Arm Commercial Guild, which handled most interstellar shipping, voted to exclude all hegemony worlds from their network. Cargo ships that had carried vital supplies suddenly stopped arriving. Within 2 weeks, food shortages began appearing on hegemony border worlds. The empire had grown dependent on imports from dozens of species, and now those supply lines were gone. Industrial production ground to a halt as raw materials stopped flowing from trading partners. 3 weeks after the broadcast, something unprecedented happened. Member species within the hegemony itself began declaring independence. The reptilian saurians of Kepler 438 announced they would no longer serve in military units that targeted medical personnel. The insectoid hive worlds simply went silent, cutting all communication with hegemony command. "Their entire empire is falling apart," reported Major Kong Suho during a briefing at Earth Defense Headquarters. "We're seeing defections at every level of their military and government." Dr. Han Minho, now fully recovered from his ordeal, watched the developments from Earth's Central Medical Academy, where he had returned to training new medics. His students, young men and women from across human space, gathered around the news displays as reports came in from across the galaxy. Doctor asked one student, "Why is the reaction so strong?" "Other species have committed war crimes before." Minho considered the question carefully. "Because healing is universal," he said finally. "Every species understands the concept of helping the wounded. When you attack medics, you're not just committing a war crime, you're attacking the very idea of compassion itself." The final blow came on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. Admiral Cho found Dr. Minho in the Academy's teaching hospital, where he was demonstrating surgical techniques to a group of new medics. "You need to see this," Admiral Cho said, activating a portable holographic display. The image showed Hegemony High Command Headquarters, a massive structure that had been the symbol of their empire's power for generations. But now, white flags flew from every tower. A news reporter's voice provided commentary in an unprecedented move. "The Hegemony High Command has agreed to unconditional surrender. War crimes tribunals will begin immediately under joint galactic oversight." Dr. Minho stared at the image in disbelief. "It's over?" "You did it," Admiral Cho said. "Justice for your people and everyone who died on Kepler 4 for 2B. But Minho shook his head, looking at his students who were listening intently. "No, Admiral. We did something better than just getting justice. We made sure this will never happen again. Every military commander in the galaxy now knows that targeting medics doesn't just break international law, it destroys entire empires." Captain Lee Jahoon approached them, walking with only a slight limp from his injuries. His recovery had been remarkable, though he would always bear the scars of his captivity. The 47th Medical Corps is being reformed, he announced. Got volunteers from every human colony, more than we can possibly train. What about the other species? Dr. Minho asked. Ji-hoon smiled. That's the best part. We're getting requests for joint training programs from dozens of worlds. The Centaurians want to learn our trauma surgery techniques. The vegans are asking about our psychological support methods. It seems everyone wants to learn from the humans who value healing above all else. As the sun set over Earth's skyline, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Dr. Han Minho returned to his work. His students continued their studies, preparing to carry on the tradition of healing that had just reshaped galactic politics. The war criminals that Earth had set free through the power of truth had faced the ultimate judgment, not from any court, but from the collective conscience of every civilized world. The hegemony's empire lay in ruins, destroyed not by weapons or armies, but by the simple act of showing the galaxy who they really were. The medical corps would continue their mission across the stars, protected now not just by laws and treaties, but by the galaxy's newfound understanding that those who heal the wounded are sacred, and those who harm them face something far worse than any court could. Impose the wrath of worlds united in their respect for compassion, in healing others. Humanity had healed the galaxy's soul. That was a victory worth more than any military conquest. The end.